Today marks the end of my 1 week long vacation from work. And while I'm churning out the videos, I might as well churn out one more video, at the very least. And that is a video request. Take a look and update you on all of the computers. There is one here that won't be able to be powered on for reasons that will be described right now, and that is this Compaq. It still works, that much hasn't changed, but it is running a beta operating system, and rather than take a chance and demonstrate it on camera and then have that not be allowed by Microsoft, I'm not going to take said chance. It's running the Windows 10 technical preview. I believe you can show it on camera, but I'm not going to, once again, I'm not going to take that chance. This machine hasn't really changed much anyway. It's still running, for those of you who are new here, it's still running the T2390 processor. That can't change. It's a BGA chip. 4 gigabytes of DDR2 memory. 320 gigabyte Seagate drive. That has changed since the last time you saw it. The last time I think you saw it, it was running a 160 gig test drive because the drive failed. But it's now got a Seagate back in it, and it is running aforementioned Windows Technical Preview. So there you go with that, and the reason why I'm shooting this with the standard definition Handycam has to do with the fact that the JVC over here is not just getting long in the tooth, as you can probably, well, maybe not. Well, there you go. You can see the chrome is fading from the edge here, but its battery decided to so helpfully give it up and drained itself overnight, even though it was fully charged yesterday. In fact, I left it plugged in after I'd finished my show, watched UXW Bill's show for a little bit, and then unplugged the camera for whatever reason. I think it was because I was trying to film something else that didn't end up going through. But here we go. Let's get ready to update you on the computers, and what better place to start than over here. And I'm going to also point out one other thing, and that is the difference between the 8100 and the 8200. As you can see, the 8100 is not as shiny. In fact, this is a metal finish with the little bump thing at the back here. I believe the bumper thing is even smaller on the 8200, but it's also made out of a shiny glossy plastic, and it's got this little rubber bit on the front. It also, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't have a floppy connector. It's got a couple of other differences, but I will mention that in its own dedicated video later on. We're going to focus on the 8100 for now. I will take a look at the 8200 in a second. Pentium 3 500 processor. 512 megabytes of memory installed. PC 100, of course. A 40 gigabyte Hitachi hard drive, and it is running Windows XP. I'm also going to power each system on and shut them down. Not really going to do an in-depth demonstration of them. Resume failure. Press any key to continue. I turned the display scaler on, so that's why things look different. This system, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is used for a slideshow screensaver computer. It could technically be called a slideshow computer for my live show. It's not fast. And before I get torn apart in the comments, yes, it's running Windows XP. No, I don't particularly care that Windows XP is out of support. And no, the system does not have the POS Ready 2009 updates enabled because, quite frankly, I don't care. It does have a password set. But I have it set to automatically log on. I'm probably going to do the same eventually to this 8200 because it is downright annoying. And as you heard, I do have the floppy drive hooked up. This is actually a matching floppy drive to the system, and it works flawlessly. I have that there because, as you know, real computers have floppy drives and PS2 ports, both things that the system has. It used to be my music computer, as you can probably tell. So let's turn this off. I love the Eraserhead mouse. I'm not sure what these two buttons here do, but I'm sure that there is somebody out there that does. So, there you go. So, let's move on to the next one once this finally shuts itself down. It's not fast at doing that either. And I doubt it would be any faster on Linux. So, I guess there's that. And it's done. You can imagine the Tecra 8200 as just a hot-rodded version of my 8100. It's got an 850 MHz Pentium 3 processor installed, 256 megabytes of memory, which is not ideal in this world, but it does run, and it runs surprisingly well for what it is. A 10 gigabyte IBM Travelstar hard drive, as you'll probably be able to hear in a second, and it is also running Windows XP, and the same mantra applies as it did before. The only differences between this and that, peripheral-wise, is that this doesn't have a floppy drive hooked up because, well, it can't. This also has a DVD-ROM drive as opposed to the CD-ROM drive that this has. And it's also got a PS2 mouse. No comments on the mess in the background, please. Compact mouse. Yes, I'm using a compact mouse on a Toshiba laptop. What a sin. And a 320 gigabyte my Passport drive that is storing all of my music. Turn that on. This is used as the music drive, music player for my live stream low-end radio shows. I don't have the scaler turned on this one because I just don't care that much. The other difference between the 8100 and the 8200 is the presence of, as you can see, a wireless on-off switch. That's right, this thing could be equipped with wireless hardware. If I had any spare mini PCI cards, I'd try that, but I don't have any spare cards, so there you go. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to use the PS2 mouse in order to operate the system, because when you've got a PS2 mouse plugged in, it disables the onboard mouse. So, I guess there's one thing. And it's going to prompt me to log in, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to turn it right back off again, because there's not much that I need to do. I've already done the monthly backup, and that's what's going on right now. I'm doing monthly backups on systems. Couldn't hear the hard drive. Now you can. Next, we've got the live stream mixing machine. This is the Aspire One 532H2807 netbook, sporting an Atom N450 processor, clocked at, I think it's a 1.8 or a 1.6 gigahertz processor. 2 gigabytes of memory, which is about the max that it will take, unless you can buy 4 gigabyte DDR2 modules, which I probably won't be doing because, well, I don't really need to buy a DDR2 memory. I've switched to DDR3 on all of my good systems. A 160 gigabyte Hitachi hard drive, and it is running Windows 7 Starter. Yes, it's running the Starter Edition, and no, I don't care to upgrade it to anything else. It is running basically what the COA says it's supposed to be running. Which is what I like to do on most of my systems, but of course, obviously these two are exceptions because they're running XP and they weren't designed for it. It's so low end, it doesn't even display the logo, although that could be because the screen resolution is so low. It's only 1024 by 600, which is the typical netbook resolution. These hinges are really bad. Don't like them too much. You can see there, Windows 7 Starter. Well, you could see that before I zoomed in way too far and caused the focus to lose the plot. And because a lot of people like to see it, I will show you the Windows Experience Index rating. So go ahead and take a look here, and we can also find out what the actual processor speed is. 1.66 gigahertz. There we go. And it's got a 2.3 in the WEI. So not too powerful, but certainly good enough for what it is. It does stutter a bit when I try to do more than one thing with it, but it is good enough for now, and I don't really feel like replacing it. If it screws the pooch, then I will definitely look into getting a more powerful system. But until then, this is more than plenty for what I need. The thing that I like about this tape camcorder is that I can import it all as one file, so I have to only do minimal editing. In fact, I might not even do any editing at all. This might be just very long. This is the T500, and this has changed slightly. Not hardware-wise. It's still clocking the, or sporting the 2.4 gigahertz, or 2.26, sorry, P8400 processor, still sporting the 4 gigabytes of DDR3 memory, still sporting the 500 gigabyte SSHD from Seagate, but it is now running Windows 8, as you'll see in a second. Because I switched my Windows 8 machine to Windows 10, I figure I needed a Windows 8 machine. And plus, I've already got a Windows 7 system, so there's no point, really. Sometimes I tell you, I want to focus on camcorders. There you can see. I should turn the wireless back on, because I wouldn't need that. Unplug that. And, oh, look, updates. I'm just going to shut it back down, though. No need to log in and do any of that yet. Shuts down pretty quickly. And now on to the T42P. Sporting a 1.8 GHz Pentium M processor, 2 gigabytes of DDR memory, an 80 gigabyte Hitachi hard drive, IDE of course, and it is running a combination of Windows XP, yes, there's Windows XP again, and Manjaro Linux. This system has not changed since you last saw it, and the only reason why it is sitting out right now is because I was just doing updates on it. The display backlight, for those of you who don't know, is most certainly failing. We'll just boot the most convenient thing possible, and that's Windows XP. It's already set up to do so. The system boots up a lot faster than the 8200 and 8100 do, but that's probably because it's got a lot more memory to work with, and it's also got a much faster processor to work with. So, there you go. Captain Obvious checking in here once again. Oh, man. Okay. This part is not fast. But we're just going to shut it back down again anyway, because you don't need to log in or do anything like that. Yes, I customized that login background, and yes, I think it's really cool. I think the Windows 7 fonts are also pretty decent for this kind of work. It certainly does take its jolly old time to shut down. That could be because it's Windows XP, though. Moving on with the... That wasn't the effect I wanted. The really cool effect here. I like the colors all the colors that shows up there. That's pretty decent. Pretty cool, in fact. This is my T410 main computer. Use this every single day. Sporting a 2.4 gigahertz first generation i5 processor, 8 gigabytes of DDR3 memory, and the hard drive situation I will discuss in a second, but it is running, as you can see, Windows 7, and in the process of doing some transfers. Hard drive wise, we've got 10 drives here, 8 of which are used for storage, while 1 of which is a boot drive, 7 of which are used for storage, and the others are backups, the other 2. The boot drive is a 128 gigabyte ADATA SSD. Sweet SSD. It was also on sale, which is the only reason why I bought it. The only other reason why I bought it, there were 2 reasons. The first one was because it was on sale. The second one was because I needed the hard drive for use in my project up there when the Seagate drive decided it was going to take a wonderful dump. Speaking of drives taking a dump, the 750 gigabyte, as you may or may not know, Caviar Black, which is the file storage drive, took a dump recently and had to be replaced under warranty, but that has already been done. So that's pretty good. Back there, we've got 3 USB 2.0 enclosures, 2 of which are Vantech Nexstar TXs. It's a pity StudyShot doesn't work in 16:9 mode. And the other of which, I'm not sure how to pronounce that manufacturer. I've always pronounced it Siig, S-I-I-G. Two of them are WD Caviar Blue drives, 500 gigabytes in size, holding VHDs and ISO images. The other one just holds random stuff, and it's a Toshiba drive. Yes, I have Toshiba drives on this system. Beside that, we've got a 500 gigabyte My Passport drive. We've got a 2 terabyte that holds YouTube videos and other videos of various types, including live show archives. The one beside it is a 2 terabyte CanVio that stores backups. The one beside it also stores backups, but it's a 1 terabyte version of the same thing, USB 3.0. Hooked up via eSATA is that thing right there. That's a Nexstar CX enclosure with a Seagate, yes, a Seagate, 2 terabyte Barracuda. Reliable drive, rather surprisingly. And rounding out the drive setup is a 300 gigabyte refurbished in that Nexstar G enclosure. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that, if that's 6G or just G or 6 or whatever. 3.5-inch enclosure needed because the Velociraptor drive that is in there, and yes, it's a Velociraptor, they're sweet drives. Not only does it run hot, but it also requires the 12 volts that this thing puts out. So there's that setup. PowerBook G4 hasn't changed. We might as well start it up as well. G4 processor, 7447A, I believe, 1.5 gigahertz, and it's got 8 gigabyte of DDR memory in it, 80 gigabyte Seagate IDE hard drive, and running OS 10.5. This one takes forever to start up, so we're not going to sit through the entire process. Yes, I broke the rule of not logging in here. Mainly because I wanted to discuss the absolutely wonderful background, which is supposed to be a potato army. This was meant in response to a poll that I did on the Stereo Dust Particles forum for one of my prior shows. And one of the options was Potato Army, and you can guess what option people picked on that poll. So there's my response. That's the reasoning behind the background. It's just a Google image, or something that I picked off of Google Images. I think it was either the first or the second result. One of the first results, anyways. And that is pretty much all you need to do. I should probably clean up the desktop once again and put all the presentations into their own folder. But for now, we'll just shut that down and move on to the next system. It also takes forever to shut down, so we're not going to sit through that entire process. The next system is my streaming computer, or the system that I both have used for video capture and for broadcasting the main feed for my low-end radio live shows. This is a custom-built Pentium D system, sporting, it's a 2.8 gigahertz Pentium D 820. I'm looking into potentially upgrading that to a Core 2 Duo, but that'll have to come later. 2 gigabytes of DDR memory, DDR 800. 3 hard drives, 2 Seagates, and a Maxtor. Yes, I really do like to live life that dangerously. 2 Seagates are on a Rocket RAID 1730 PCI card, and are in a RAID 1 array, so that gives me an 80 gigabyte array. And the other 80 gigabyte Seagate is the boot drive. It is running both Vista and POS Ready 2009, or basically XP. That's also running POS Ready 2009 and not XP, but they're basically the same thing. There's no point. Let's turn that on. Amazingly, it turned on without my having to slam the power button. The monitor is an Acer AL1706, sweet monitor. The speakers back there aren't hooked up, but those are old Creative Labs speakers. They sound pretty decent, but they're unpowered, so they don't really get that loud, unless you have them hooked up to an amplifier. We're not going to sit and watch through this whole boot process either, or maybe we will. This shouldn't take that long. We'll just hit the enter key. On the Easy Eyes keyboard. I hate this thing, but it was cheap. It was only $1. So there you go. Amazon prices for this range from $9 to $17. Don't pay that much. It is a crappy keyboard. In fact, if you can find better, don't buy that keyboard at all. But the operative word here was cheap, and it was readily available. Oh yeah, the netbook. On the netbook, I've also got a USB, what is that thing? It's a Lenovo mouse, and I've also got that Luxor cheap-ass keyboard down there. Let's not kid ourselves, that thing was probably about $5. And that was several years ago. Once again, Oh, it looks like it crashed the last time it was on. Yeah, it does that sometimes. Flash Live Media Encoder tends to freak this computer out. I'm going to shut that back down, because I've already done the backup on this as well, and then we'll move on to the next system. Oh look, glossy CRT monitor. Hello there. This is the iMac G3 350. Nothing has changed about it. It's still running the same processor. Same, I think it's got 512 megabytes of memory in it, or maybe it's got a gigabyte, I can't remember. 20 gigabyte Maxtor hard drive, and it's running OS 904. I think the last time it was powered on, save for last night when I changed the clock, because the clocks did go back yesterday, was back in August, or whenever the last time I transferred photos from my digital still camera was. Let's turn this on. System still runs. It is loud as all get out, thanks to the bad bearing sound. Classic hard drive sound, as I like to call it. I'm not sure how well this is going to show up on camera without all the blinking. The focus on this particular CRT actually is not bad. It is drifting, but it is certainly not as bad as my other iMac, which I will probably grab out and demonstrate. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll just... because you've already seen a video of that one recently where I put it back together. It's the G3 600 sitting in the closet right now. This camera focuses a lot better on CRT monitors than the other one does, the JVC. Then again, this camera focuses a lot better than the JVC, period. The battery is also very good. I'm getting about... tells me that there's about 100 minutes left on this battery. And, the other camcorder would have died by now. Let's be honest with ourselves here. So, there you go. Move that out of the way. And we can now shut the thing down. Next, we've got the Portage 7020 CT, and as a change of pace, I'm doing this with the docking station disconnected. Pentium 2 366 with, I believe it's got 128 megabytes of memory installed in it, which is a little bit overkill for Windows 98, but it will do. It's what I had handy. And it's got, I think it's a 1 gigabyte, or maybe it's a 6 gigabyte Toshiba hard drive. It also powers on really quickly off of battery, or off of without the docking station installed. Probably because it doesn't have to initialize all of the extra hardware. It is only a monophonic speaker, just that right there. So the startup sound will sound a little bit different. Because it's missing one of the channels of audio. But there you go. It might take forever to shut down. Or at least it will take forever this way. Probably tried to shut it down a little bit too quickly. Yeah, that is much faster than it is on the docking station. Next up is the Pride and Joy. Probably the oldest system in my collection. Maybe not. I'm not sure. No, it's not quite. The PowerBooks that I've got are the older ones. And I will also be powering those on, even though they don't have hard drives. This is the 420 CDT from Toshiba. Pentium 120. Slowest. It's actually the slowest of the PCs that I have. I think it's got maybe 40 megabytes of installed memory, a 1 gigabyte Toshiba hard drive, and it is running Windows 3.11 for workgroups. Real-time clock also had some interesting ideas as to what the time was when I last powered it on. So we'll see if the time is actually advanced, because I think the time isn't advancing properly. Remember when systems actually did a memory count? Yeah, those times have certainly passed. People have asked about that clicking noise in the background that is heard on some of my videos. I'm not sure if you can hear it now, but it's actually that thing up there, the custom clock. That pendulum actually does nothing, it's just there for decoration, but I felt like adding that just for its humor value. As you can see, I've actually changed the colors, mainly because the garish-looking other hot dog stand colors got kind of old pretty quickly. So date and time. It is, well, it's not 8:31 a.m., so I think maybe it's not counting properly, but that's okay. I guess the clock battery could very well be dead, but... oh well. Good enough for me. We're going to jump a little bit over to the dark corner, because this machine happens to be the one that was plugged in last. The NEC Versa 6030X. My beaten up, ancient... I think this one might actually be older, or around the same time period as the 420 CDT. But it does have a trackpad. Roadside find with the busted power supply. I am surprised that this thing still works. The power switch, or what's left of the power switch, is starting to get a little bit worn from my using instruments in order to power it on, and the left speaker is definitely so far past gone it's not even funny, but it is still working. Pentium 133, I think it's got 16 megabytes of installed memory, a 1.4 gigabyte IBM hard drive, original drive, which given that the system was likely dropped, and that's why there's the damage in this corner that you probably can't see, given that that is, looks like the original drive, it's not far off of the original drive if it isn't, is still working with no problems after being dropped. That is resiliency. What's more is the real-time clock battery, as I found out, is actually still good. Let's see, can I turn this on without breaking something? Yep. As you can hear, the speaker is busted, and moving it back and forth will not fix it any longer, or at least not satisfactorily. Backlight is also not very healthy, shall we say. But it still boots. Running Windows 3.1. Yep. About 16 megabytes of installed memory, Pentium 133. Microsoft Windows. Remember when it was called that by full name? It's also running Office 4.3. And that is pretty much all she wrote about this system. I'm not sure if you can hear the hard drive over both the speaker crackling and this mouse is very touchy. This is the reason why I dislike trackpads. Come on. We'll just do it the old-fashioned way then. We take a look here, the date is correct. And so is the time. Come on. Apparently I can't get the power switch. Okay, I'll do it off camera. And now for the last of the display pieces. This is the 6230, the system that I've got that, quite contrary to my other NEC Versa, is probably the best one out of them all, in the best condition. Got all the software and documentation with it. It is stupendously well maintained. Probably not even used either. I found it in a drawer. Probably was sitting there for 5 or 6, maybe even 10 years before I got to it. And it is This power supply, which I was using to power on this one right here, is also the original power supply to this system. So let's turn it on. Pentium 233. I think it's got 128 megabytes of memory installed in it. I guess we can find out. Of course, escape for boot messages. Yep, 128 megabytes of memory if you didn't see that. Whoops. Running the factory build of Windows 95 on a 10 gigabyte IBM TravelStar hard drive. Really quiet IBM TravelStar, as you can probably tell. I'm not sure if you can even hear the drive over the tape motor noise. Once again, I've got a fond dislike for trackpads, and this one's probably going to affirm those hatred. Huh, surprisingly well behaved. This also has a good clock battery, for those wondering. And here is a blast from the past. I feel like I should turn that date back. Haven't showed this thing in a very long time. This is the PowerBook 520C. Even though it is color, even though it's got a DSTN display, and I don't like those. I had one back in the day, or way back when. It was a Toshiba Satellite. I think the model was 490 CDS or something like that, but I didn't like the display then. I don't like it now, but it will do if you're in a pinch. And they were certainly cheap, which is why a lot of them are around. 25 MHz 68L CO40 processor, Motorola, of course. I don't remember how much memory is installed, but it doesn't have a hard drive because the drive... Let's go ahead and power it up. Oh, you know what generally helps? Turning the power switch on for that input. Yeah. Still not working. There we go. Because there's no hard drive, I can't tell when it actually turns itself on. I really would like to find a hard drive for this, but finding something is going to be increasingly difficult. You can see there the blinking question mark icon. And then we've got the oldest system in the collection. My PowerBook 180. It looks like it's still in excellent condition. It too has no hard drive, unfortunately, because it died as well. But this has a 33 MHz 68030 processor in it, and it's got a 10 megabyte RAM card and 4 megabytes on board, so it's got 14 total. Look at that, it even turned on the first try. Grayscale display, but it's also active matrix, which is a nice feature. And then the blinking question mark icon. And here we have the Dell Latitude CPX, or as I've somewhat jokingly referred to it, the unemployed Dell. And the reason for that is because it used to be the screensaver computer that was sitting right there. But when I replaced the music player, the old music player became the screensaver computer, and so this Dell now has no place. 750 megahertz Pentium 3, almost said PowerPC G3. Wouldn't that have been unproductive? 128 megabytes of memory, a 12 gigabyte IBM TravelStar hard drive, and it is running Windows 2000 with the unofficial updates. Well, that was an interesting detour, but as you can see, it's now started. Built on NT technology, of course. Doesn't give it away that it's running the unofficial updates. Unless you look at the start screen. Or the boot splash, sorry. That's it for that one. Time to get out the last system. And rounding off this rather admittedly long computer video is my dilapidated and rather unhappy about being sitting cold for a while Tecra 8000. This system is basically identical to the Portage 7020 CT, but it's got 256 megabytes of memory instead, and it's got a 10 gigabyte IBM TravelStar hard drive, which when I put it away the first time and pulled it out, it had some serious issues. It's been a couple of weeks since I put it away again, and the date and time is almost certain to be wrong because the clock battery is dead and the system battery is also dead to the world. So we will see what happens this time. It's trying to charge it. It's not going to have too much luck. Let's see, bad checksum. So let's see, is there anything here that I need to change? 256 megabytes of memory. I don't think there is anything here that I need to worry about here. Yeah, no, I don't think there's anything you really need to worry about, but we'll save the changes anyways. It's running Anti-X Linux as well as Windows NT Workstation version 4. Focus camera, please. We'll just let it boot Linux and we'll see what it does. It's almost certainly going to drop the battery like a hot potato. Wow, this is clean. I think it's only ever found problems once. So for a failing hard drive, that's pretty darn good. Oops. GUI is starting, and it is almost certainly going to lock up as soon as I do what I want to do. But you don't need to see all of that. Thank you for watching this long video that is now out of focus because apparently none of my camcorders like dark light and don't like to focus in it. This is CP666 signing off. I hope to see you next time. Till then.